Browns, this is The Order. Welcome back to The Order. I am Celtic Templar, and today, y'all, we're actually going to be discussing the somewhat lost warrior from history known as the Pagenses. Yes, it's pronounced Pagenses, not Pagenses. Trust me, I got that one mixed up when I tried reading about them. Now, what are the Pagenses? Well, from what we can account from historical manuscripts, is that they were probably mostly that of levy archers, in fact, or levy skirmish units who used ambush-like tactics to attack their opponents. In fact, it's actually stated that the term Pagenses is the Latin term for dwellers of the forest, or dwellers of the countryside. And that's actually what these guys were. These guys were pretty much mostly that in the countryside. They were hunters. They used tactics that in which, well, were like ambush style. In fact, one monk from Rome in the year of, I believe it was 601 AD, actually writes about these type of warriors, stating that they would crawl on their bellies and even on their knees to get close to their enemies. It said that they used such tactics even in the middle of the night and would attack them with ferocity. It said that they used, sometimes they used javelins, but the majority of times they would use the bow or the sling, which I'm wearing around me, which is another thing they were known to do. It said that they wore belts made out of rope and turned it into a sling. They would also, if they didn't have a bow or arrows, they would also use a carrying pouch to carry lead weights, which they would hurl at their opponents. Now here's the thing, many of y'all would think, oh, Templar, what's a lead weight going to do? What do you think was on medieval arrowheads most of the time? So the fact is, they would use this to their point to use it into effective firepower. In fact, if none other than in history books, lead was actually even used in muskets, and technically is also used in some firearms today, depending on the bullets you use. But the fact is, the bow was actually probably their most common use weapon, other than the sling. Now, when they did use the javelins or spears, there are accounts that stated that they would charge up or as well hide in the brushes, and due to the fact of their natural clothing that they wore in the environment, they would use ambush styles in the middle of the night or in the early morning and slaughter the Saxons, or even later on the Viking invaders. In fact, one later saga that was written by a Viking chronicler actually adds that demons from the western lands of Britain. Now, this is actually written like in the later centuries, but so we could probably guess what he's probably talking about. But now I want to put this out here. This was mostly written later on in the history book. So, from what we can understand, he might have been meaning talking about the Saxons, but I don't think so. But anyways, it's stated that the demons from the Western Isles, or the Western lands in Britain, were ferocious demons. They emerge from nowhere and everywhere, using a hit-and-run strategy. Now, this is just a modern take of what it said, but you can understand how horrifying this would be in the middle of the night or the early morning, that you get attacked, and next thing you know, the enemy vanishes without a trace like that. It's kind of scary just thinking about it. So just imagine, these guys would probably wear no armor, no equipment other than what they carried with them. In fact, it's actually stated that bundles of arrows they had were 10 times more than this. In fact, I have 6 arrows. So in other words, they would carry 60 arrows and fire them at their opponents, leaving not a trace of them alive. So just imagine how scary that would be in the middle of the early morning, and you start seeing your comrades dying left and right because of an arrow probably sticking out of their neck or even their gut. In fact, it's actually stated that some of the arrows they had were actually tipped with poison. But if we know one thing, they probably weren't. They were probably tipped with cow dung or manure or even their own fecal matter or even urine. And just imagine how disgusting that would be, having to feel that. And you would get bacterial infection, you would die slowly. So in other words, these guys were using gruesome tactics that we would call chemical warfare. In fact, it's even said that sometimes even the blades of their spears were tipped with poison, but they were probably tipped with cow manure. So just imagine if I actually snuck up behind you and thrust into you from behind, and it is that you got cow manure from a blade in your gut. Ugh. Honestly, I'm kind of scared about that one. But now, I hear maybe you're already asking, oh, but Marv, what other weapons did they use? Did they use, like, knives? Yes, they used knives, but these were what you would call a stealth weapon. In other words, they would crawl up and or stab it into their unprotected region, mostly being that of the groin. But holy hell, that's kind of the haha. Yeah. But how about enough talk? Let's get right into the video.
Flan for din i kokøj, tu aljacht was, du nach forgrich forbaniet, nar konjardel. Robswan, robsudin jarië, rim koabra, noko giva bdina brekta, ribal savra. Grach yn siawrach yn y haswl I ffordd. Grach yn siawrach yn y haswl I ffordd. Mysje kriegliche in schwaar, een krieg voor roen naar alles hou niet volg, een krieg aan een gacht doel is die.
like that little bit of a rundown. Now, as y'all saw me moving around this equipment, I felt no fatigue at all. Now, as y'all saw, I was moving on the ground pretty much as close as I could get. This is as close as I can get to the historical written account about the Pagenses. Now, many accounts, as we understand about the Pagenses, is that their equipment was very different in historical points. Now, the Pagenses, though, did change over time, but this equipment didn't change until the 13th century. That's right, these guys would have been, well, used in the military combat formations of Wales, or in this case, to defend Wales, up until the fall of the Welsh countryside. Now, there are accounts of them being used in the Welsh army and such, but I don't have much evidence to say the least. Though the Pagenses were that of lightly equipped units. Now, as y'all saw, I was also using my belt, like this sling as a belt, because there are accounts of them using them. There are also accounts of them using them in big bags like this, with lead stones. Now, if y'all know how dangerous lead is, here's the thing. Take a look what happens when you get hit by lead with a musket, or with some modern-day firearms. So in doing so, it's still very dangerous. And in fact, they were also shaped differently compared to a stone. They looked like small triangles, like they had different shapes in general, and even some had taunts. Now, one written account by a Roman historian by the name of Cartadius actually stated that the Pagenses were such strange men in a very strange land. And it's even accounted that they dressed in bear skins or some sort of animal skins to mark their first hunt. Now, I don't know if that means anything, but if you think about it, it probably means that these guys would, their first animal they ever hunted, like an elk or whatever, would embody the spirit, but we don't have much evidence to say the least. As well, much evidence we do have about them, it's very rare to talk about, since one, the Pagenses are, well, lost units to history. Now, some of y'all actually would end up saying, oh, but Templar, the Pagenses aren't lost, you're talking about them. Well, that's the thing, we don't actually have much evidence. In fact, the evidence we do have of them is actually written, but no pictorial evidence. All that we can understand is that they would, some accounts actually stated that they looked like the Cambrogi, only without armor. Now, the Cambrogi already didn't have any armor except for helmets. So that says something. As well as some accounts even stated that they were merely naked on the battlefield, but we all know they aren't. As well, many accounts that we also have of them, it stated that their weapons were tipped with poison, such as their spears and such. But if we do evidence, that means that they were probably either one, urinated on, or two, had fecal matter on. They did the enemy dirty. But from what I can understand, the Pagenses would have been used as that of levy archers. In fact, as we all know, the term Pagenses means dwellers of the countryside or dwellers of the forest. And that's actually what they were. They stayed that way for a long time until the conquest of Wales by the English, known as Edward I of England, or Edward the Longshines, who hired a lot of these guys in their military service. In fact, it's actually stated that he would pay them each a pound of silver, I believe it was, in which would be a lot of money at that time. A pound of silver, just imagine on how much that would be worth to today's money. And accounts stated that they were used in his wars in France, or as well in areas like Scotland and Ireland. But the fact is, they were more used as defensive units. In fact, it's actually stated that he had called Cambrogi, the Pagenses, to be used in the defense of the border of England. And in fact, there are some accounts that actually stated that the Pagenses were also still in the northern end of England and southern end of Scotland. when the area of Strathclyde was later conquered. So in other words, the Pagenses might have actually been used even in the armies at the time. But I don't know. These guys do seem probably very gruesome. Seems in fact that one, they would be used in a form of hit-and-run warfare. In fact, a chronicle account of the Saxons stated that our town on the edge of Stenbra was attacked by demons from the very fog banks in the middle of the night. Arrows were released, homes were burned, many were killed. As soon as the fighting had started, it had ended. In other words, these guys use a form of shock combat, or in this case, strategic mental warfare that horrified their opponents. So just imagine me attacking you in the middle of the night with, say, a couple dozen of these guys, and in doing so, as soon as I hit you, I just book it to the next village. I don't need to kill you. All I gotta do is put shock combat into you to the point you are unable to think straight. In fact, it's actually stated that the Pagenses would actually carry 10 times more than the arrows I am having right now. That means they would have carried around 60. Just imagine how scary that would have been. I would be horrified to note the fact that one, I'm dealing with demons coming after me in the middle of the morning or the middle of the afternoon or as well the nightfall, right when I'm sleeping or something like that. So just imagine how scary this would have been for an everyday civilian. You don't know if these guys are going to come on and attack you in the middle of the night on your border areas, because one, your village is right on the border. Hell, I'm going to be using that to my advantage. But we have accounts that stated that the Pagenses were used as lightly equipped units to be used and to attack their opponents in such a manner. Now there are accounts that also stated that they used small bucklers, but I don't know how that would make any sense, in the fact that one, these were combat shock units. In other words, they would be used to attack their opponents and then hide and run. Or run and hide. Or in this case, come back around and attack it from the other side. So, yeah. But anyways, guys, what do you think about the Pagenses? Do you think that they are a pretty badass unit from history? Or do you think that, they shouldn't be talked about much? Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below of what warrior from history y'all want me to talk about next. And hopefully soon we will catch you on our next couple of how-to videos, of which hopefully soon we will be doing the Hallstatt culture. But yeah, anyways guys, like and subscribe for more. Hope to see y'all in the next one. And have a great day, y'all.